Well, for some analysis, we can bring in Divyesh Anand, a professor of international relations at the University of Westminster in London. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Just first, what's your take on this rapidly agreed ceasefire and why it seems to have failed to last?
Thank you so much for having me here. First, it's a good relief that we have the ceasefire. That's important because, of course, what the risk was, the war would have taken place and the thing would have, a conflict would have escalated. The surprise comes from the fact that Vance had announced that he would not be intervening, he would not be intervening. But in one sense, the ceasefire, the way it had happened, has allowed both Pakistan and India to claim victory, but more crucially, also Trump to claim credit for it. And we note that neither Pakistan or India are pushing back and claim. In fact, Pakistan is thanking Trump while India is maintaining some kind of silence on US role. And that's reason is because Pakistan has always wanted a third party mediation, including US mediation in conflict between India and Pakistan over Kashmir. While India's position was this was at best a bilateral matter, or in fact, even only a unilateral matter of India to settle. So, in fact, if there's a diplomatic change, it would be for India to explain to its own public why it has allowed a third party, in this case, US, to intervene. But for the public, the civilians on both Indian control side and the Pakistan control side, it would be a relief because this conflict is main victim would have been them.
And how is India going to explain to the public that it allowed the US to intervene? How is it going to handle that?
Yeah, in fact, we have in India a very leader who claims to be very strong and a hyper nationalist far right government. The way they might do, of course, is through the control of the media. If you look at the Indian media, they have behaved quite irresponsible, particularly the broadcast media. They had been, in fact, talking of conquering Pakistan, breaking up Pakistan, and none of that has actually happened. But they might focus on the fact that, according to them, the narrative they're building is Pakistan begged for a ceasefire. Sorry, Pakistan begged for ceasefire because it feared India. That's how they might sell it. But I'm sure behind the scene, there would be a lot of rethinking of how even despite the rhetoric of nationalism and strong leadership, what Modi, of course, has been doing, particularly because of his supposed close relation with Trump, is in fact shifting India's diplomacy and policy around Kashmir if he allows US actually to mediate. Because remember, Trump is not really talking ceasefire, but he's also talking of him offering to bring mediation on Kashmir conflict. And normally that would be unacceptable for India. So we'll see how it goes in the future, because what Modi has often focused on is not to make India stronger, but controlling an image domestically to portray himself as the strong man leader. And of course, if you notice, the Indian opposition party, including Congress, have been to an extent politely but mocking Modi because they're comparing him now to Indira Gandhi, the Indian Prime Minister in the past, who was quite strong, who stood up to US and actually at the 1971 war defeated Pakistan and helped create the Bangladesh. So they're comparing him, Modi, who talks a lot, according to them, but doesn't act when it comes to war, uh, with Indira Gandhi, who actually defeated Pakistan and created Bangladesh.
And as you said, Donald Trump,
I
really
mean, helped
wants
create Bangladesh,
to
not created.
as you said, Donald Trump, really wants to be the one to solve this decades-old conflict in Kashmir. Do you think that he could be the one to do it?
No. And the reason for that, of course, if you look at the conflicts where he intervenes, even Israel and Palestine, with Israel, US has a good relation, but it's unlikely that it can solve the conflict. It can bring some kind of truce, possibly. Ukraine and Russia, we have seen what is happening. He can't solve the conflict. At best, he can stop the war, possibly. And he can only stop the war by weakening Ukraine, and that's what we are seeing. Now, vis-a-vis India and Pakistan, he's not able to solve the conflict because at the heart of the conflict, not like some kind of misunderstanding between India and Pakistan, but the claim made by both states to control the entire region without taking into account the aspirations of Kashmiri people. So at best, Trump can bring some kind of temporary rule into the two. But what he can't do, of course, is pursue the two states to recognize that the main actors in this conflict are neither Pakistan nor India, but the people of Jammu and Kashmir who are divided themselves.
And what would it take in that case to find a lasting peace? I mean, what do you see as the potential way forward?
And of course, we haven't mentioned China. Remember, we have got a key actor, China, and everyone, in fact, should pay attention. the role of China in this case in bolstering Pakistan at this time and very openly siding with Pakistan and arming China is something we have to observe. For lasting solution, what we require, of course, is dialing down the nationalism by both India and Pakistan, by taking it into their own rhetoric and strengthening democracies in the region. Neither of them have done that, by the way, neither India nor Pakistan. Both control without providing any rights to the people. And then having a serious discussion between themselves, but having Kashmiris also in the room. And for that, the war making is not the answer. And I don't see neither Modi nor the military dominated Pakistan ready for that kind of serious negotiation where they consider Kashmiris as people with human rights, not only the right to self-determine, but also human rights. And we are not seeing that at all in the region at this stage. So at best, what we can hope at this point in time is a truce, some kind of peace, and not arming of the two countries. What's likely to happen, of course, is with the use of the weapons by both sides at this point, is they might be arming themselves even more for next round of conflict.
And what do you make of the fact that there are already reports that this ceasefire has been violated? I mean, do you think that's sort of just having trouble getting off the ground, but you think it's ultimately going to hold?
We won't know. But so of course, my friends on both sides of the region on social media were talking about the violation conflict. And the common narrative, of course, was that part of it is while ceasefire is welcome, we also have to understand that Kashmir should be in the room in negotiation. Now, this may hold actually. Part of it is because, of course, Pakistan would push back against US and Trump. And anyway, it has achieved by surviving and presenting its own people that they survived the war. And India also might not push back against Trump. And partly this is because Modi has shifted to an extent the foreign policy from being genuinely non-aligned, which was what it was until now, to getting closer to the US. And with Trump and his temperament, we all know that you can't annoy Trump. So he would not want to annoy Trump. And in that sense, what we are finding is that ceasefire violation may take place, but US might intervene again. But we shouldn't be predicting 100% what might happen immediately. But what they won't want, of course, is to portray to the own public that they have won. And which is fine, so long as they don't fight a war. I think that's better.
Absolutely. We're going to have to wait and see, but you seem positive, which is a good thing for now in the short term. Divyesh Anand, thank you again so much for your analysis. That's Divyesh Anand, a professor of international relations at the University of Westminster in London.